Good morning. We're going to wait just a few seconds for everybody to join, but we're glad to have you all here. We've got a few more folks joining. We just opened up that waiting room, so we're going to wait just a few more seconds and we will get started. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. My name is Maria Loftus with the Salt Lake Chamber, and we are thrilled to have everyone joining us this morning for 15 Points of Business Continuity Planning webinar. And we're very happy to have James Ray with us from Be Ready Utah program. He's the lead with the Utah Division of Emergency Management. And James has a very robust presentation for us today with a lot of important information. So James, welcome. We'll go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen now. Let me know if you're seeing that okay.
Yes, you're good.
All right. Okay, so thank you. Again, as she said, my name is James Ray. I work with the Utah Division of Emergency Management, and I am acting as the lead for the state's Be Ready business program. And I'm super excited to be able to share some really great information with you. As stated in the flyer that's gone out, the announcements, there's some tools throughout this. And I want to get you access to all of those tools. You'll notice in the chat that there are some links there. If everybody can't see those links, then we'll repost those. So let us know if you can access those links just fine. There's the 15 Points of Business Continuity Planning link that's there, so you can kind of see kind of an overview document. There's the What is Be Ready Business. I'll just briefly speak about that. There's a subscription line for subscribing per Be Ready Business emails. And then there's also a link for our Be Ready Business calendar. So we have a calendar of events that are coming up. September's coming up. It's National Preparedness Month, and there's a whole lot of information coming out, and there's a bunch of things on the calendar that you can see. And then this PowerPoint presentation I've made available to you. So you can go in there and click on the various links to access some of the various tools. And so the link to that is provided right there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into it. Business continuity planning. There's a few reality checks that we want to keep in mind here. First of all, building a business continuity plan can be time consuming for small businesses who don't have the manpower or knowledge to dedicate to it. Most businesses are steeped in just trying to keep their business afloat. Also, it's not natural to spend time on something you hope never happens and money on something you hope you never need. These realities are some of the root causes for why so many businesses don't have business continuity plans. But we also just can't keep this other reality away. Disasters happen. And if it catches you unprepared, your business will sink. people will lose their job and everything that you've worked so hard for will be no more. So Mother Nature has always done its thing. There are technological things that happen, political things that happen, and sometimes there's just bad people out there trying to do bad things. And so disasters do happen. And so for a new perspective, right, building business continuity may be one of the more important things that you could do for your business. Now, here's Be Ready Utah. Be Ready Utah is trying to prepare every family, school, business, and community within the state of Utah. And we want everybody to do 4 basic things. We want everybody to be informed, make a plan, get a kit, get involved. So I want to briefly describe what Be Ready Business provides to you for free. We have business preparedness information, both on our website and information that we share via email and things that go out on social media as well. We've got business continuity planning training, tools, templates, and even consultation that we can support. We are state government, so we don't charge. It's a free service that we provide to you. We also provide connectivity. Your local emergency managers are somebody that we hope to connect you with. We are encouraging local municipalities to create private sector preparedness councils. And so connecting you with those and other subject matter experts. There's additional training opportunities. We've got a list, and you can request trainings to come to your facility to train your staff on or whatnot. There's, just to name a very few, but active shooter preparedness, cybersecurity, stop the bleed, SERT, that's community emergency response team training. There's also security assessments for critical infrastructure. One of our offices inside of our office, we have what's called the Utah Public-Private Partnership, and they do security assessments for cyber, site, and supply chain. And then we're also in the process of finishing up our Be Ready Utah recognition program. So there's a Be Ready business component to that to help recognize your business as a prepared business. And so that'll be coming out pretty shortly. There is a subscription link in the chat for subscribing for Be Ready business information that comes out. There's that calendar link in the chat as well. But also we have our social media channels that you can follow. Just follow hashtag Be Ready Business on any of our Be Ready Utah social media platforms. And also on Pinterest, we have a Pinterest board full of great ideas and information. And we have a board that's specifically for businesses as well. And then we have a YouTube channel full of videos as an asset to help you be informed and as a training tool for your staff and others. So great information there that you can be involved with. So here is a video we'll kind of watch for a moment about business continuity planning. Can you hear that okay? Or do I need to?
Nope, it was fine.
Okay, you could hear it. Okay, awesome. All right, I wanted to make sure the audio was optimized for that.
Wait. Thanks. Running late? Yeah, traffic was rough this morning. Crisis averted. No crisis, just a little traffic. What if there had been a lot of traffic? Everyone needs a backup plan. Just like every company needs a business continuity plan. What just happened?
Could be a blackout.
Completely unpredictable.
Where did you get that? It's important to start your business continuity planning early. How long can you operate without core systems and processes? What if your entire network went down? No communications means no sales and lost customers.
Why isn't this thing working? Finally. Recovery's good, but 75% of companies without continuity plans fail within 3 years.
Who's in charge during a disaster? Like a fire? Identifying teams and assigning tasks is essential. Everyone needs to know their responsibilities. What's going on? It could be a hurricane. Hurricane?
Weather can badly damage your assets. Planning better prepares your company to recover from any disruption.
Why aren't you getting wet?
Not everyone's under the same umbrella. It's important to test, update, and exercise your preparedness measures.
So, can we share?
No. A business continuity plan for one company won't fit another. That's why it's important for everyone to develop their own plans. Why are you wearing a mask?
Don't forget to plan for the human element. Contingency planning should go beyond natural disasters. Plan for man-made threats too. Oh, come on. Great. Hey, let me out. Will your continuity plan be in place when it matters most?
That's a funny video. Here's some statistical information to kind of help you get a grasp onto why this is important. It's interesting to note that of businesses impacted by a disaster, that 75% of them 3 years later fail. Those businesses never reopen their doors. There's a cost to being down, and you can mitigate against that cost. It's also interesting to note that companies that experience business interruptions of any kind, of any type, and cannot resume operations within 10 days will likely fail. And employees are 75% more likely to take action when employers encourage them to be prepared for disasters. And 52% of small business owners estimate the time necessary for disaster recovery is 3 months. So just some important information to kind of keep in mind. Why does this matter to you? Business continuity helps companies fulfill their moral responsibility to protect employees, the community, and the environment. It facilitates compliance with regulatory requirements. It enhances a company's ability to recover from financial losses. And it reduces exposure to civil or criminal liability. It enhances companies' image and credibility with employees, customers, suppliers, and the community. And it may even reduce your insurance premiums. With Be Ready Business, we're in the process of putting together this toolkit on Google Drive. And there's a link there. You can connect to that, or if you have a smartphone, you can access it that way as well. There's a great planning tool. The US Chamber Foundation, they created what's called the Resilience in a Box. That's a great tool to kind of help get you started. And then also a great partner in business continuity planning is the Disaster Resistant Business Toolkit. They got quite a few free interactive guides to develop comprehensive business continuity program. And then FEMA partnered with flash.org to create the Ready Business program. There's some toolkits in there, information that's could be useful for you. So check those out. Now, what we're going to talk about today, there are 15 areas that Be Ready Business has identified for business continuity. And we're going to touch on all 15 of those areas. Now, realize that this training, business continuity planning training, we have about 9 hours of curriculum for that. But we're going to spend about 45 minutes going through this really quickly. So, but at the very end, if you have any questions or whatnot, please feel free to ask. We definitely want to entertain questions and realize that this training in full form could be provided to you if you find that valuable. So let's start. Number one, the very first step in business continuity planning and business continuity management is creating the team. Who's going to be on that team? You need the experts from all the key areas of your operation and build upon their unique perspectives. And the very first step to creating that team is getting top-level commitment. Your C-suite, the chiefs within your operation. It's so important that they buy off on this, that they implement this as part of the community culture. But sometimes because of those realities we talked about at the beginning, it might not, they may say, I don't have time for this, or so education is important. They also may need to know, hey, what's in it for me, right? And helping align this with the agency's goals, their policies, their values, helping your C-suite know how this aligns with those is really important. And then your top-level administrators, when you're doing things, invite them, involve them as the process goes along. Step two is establishing the team itself. So the planning team includes leaders from all the various departments within your operations. You'll want to define who that team leader is and set the expectations with the group that this is a long haul matter. This is a culture setting kind of thing. This isn't just a one and done. It continues to go on after. You'll also want to clarify team authority. What can this team actually do, and assign those roles and responsibilities, right? Who is in charge of what throughout this entire planning and management concept. The second one is determine the essential business functions. Number 2 and number 3 on this list of business continuity planning principles are core principles for actually being able to do any of the other parts. So first of all, those business functions need to be mapped. Map all those business functions through what's called a business process analysis. And there's a link right there to use to kind of help you with that, to kind of grasp some ideas on how that works. Once you're done with the business process analysis, you'll need to find which of those functions are essential. The essential ones are the ones that must perform during a disruption to normal operations and must continue performance during emergencies. They are important as well as urgent. The non-essential functions are the ones that can be deferred until after an emergency. You'll need to do this process before actually doing your business impact analysis. So to determine which functions are essential versus non-essential, there's a list of questions here that you can utilize to measure each function to say, is this essential? Also determine what your recovery time objectives are. And this step in the process is a particular important step for your C-suite to be involved with. The upper management is looking hard at the numbers, and they may have some intel and knowledge about how long certain things can survive in downtime. So the next step is identifying those risks and hazards. and rating those vulnerabilities. This is the part where the whole business impact analysis happens. So step one in this is identifying the hazards. There's a whole list of things, both natural, technological, human caused, some process oriented. As you go through each of the various concepts, you start to identify which hazards are likely in your area. And there's some tools to help you. There's something called the hazard index tool. It's very useful for natural hazards, not so much for technological or human caused hazards, but is historic based information to kind of help you identify what hazards are near you. There's also something that requires GIS, Geographical Information Systems, and uses ArcGIS as a platform. But this GIS tool with HAZUS from FEMA allows you to map the risks from hazards anywhere in the United States. So, and these are particularly also useful when we talk about the supply chain concept. There's also the drought monitor. US Drought Monitor is a great tool to kind of see, how the drought conditions are going on, depending on the industry you're in and what's going to be happening. You can start positioning yourselves against the drought conditions. And right now here in Utah, with major drought situation. So there's also the Utah's Wildfire Risk Assessment Portal, where you can actually say, hey, here's where I am and here's where the wildfire risk is. So if you're in that area, then you can be planning accordingly. Also, FEMA has an interactive flood hazard map where you can drill down to where you're at and determine the flood hazard that's in your area. There's also a map that UGS offers that has the fault lines on it. Where do earthquakes happen and other geological hazards, landslides and radon and all sorts of things like that can be accessed all right there. One great tool to access is your local emergency manager. They've oftentimes already done hazard analysis for the community that your business resides. And you can connect with them and they can help you know exactly what's going to be happening in that area. Once you've identified those hazards, the next step is to assess what is the highest vulnerability. You'll need to prioritize, right? What assets, what essential functions could those various hazards affect? And so you're thinking about the people, the property, the supply chain, your information technology, any of the business operations, et cetera. There's lots of various things that you can consider. And there's a tool that can help you to prioritize which one is the most important to focus on first. And so this hazard and vulnerability assessment worksheet can be utilized to help you with that. Once you've done that, then you want to analyze the impact, right? What is going to be the cost of the assets or essential functions being put at risk? What are the impacts from each of the hazards, the casualties, the property damage, the financial loss? Those will help you prioritize as well. And there's a sheet that can help you with that. The Business Impact Analysis Worksheet. Right there, there's a link to that you put each of the various essential functions, one essential function at a time, and then analyze all of the various things and impacts that are associated to that essential function. Now, describe how the threat or the hazard can impact the essential function on this worksheet. What's at risk, what essential function performance is disrupted, the time frames there and the priorities with the costs. The step 4 is then identifying, developing, and incorporating those risk management strategies and other options. Like, what are we going to do if this shuts down? Are there secondary options? So there's some examples right there, but those can all be worked in that business impact analysis worksheet as well. Now, once your business process analysis is done, your business impact analysis is done, then you can launch forward in a whole bunch of other aspects of business continuity. So one of those aspects, especially, is home. It's interesting how preparedness at home has a direct impact on preparedness at the workplace. Once an employee is confident their family needs are met, then that employee will be able to continue functioning at the workplace. Here at Be Ready Utah, we readily recognize the direct relationship between business and family. And preparing a family will be preparing your business. It's interesting to know that only 7% of Americans have taken the necessary steps to prepare for disasters. And that 75% of company plans do not support employee resiliency. So build a preparedness culture in your workplace, and there's a whole bunch of resources to help you. You don't have to make it from scratch. There's tons of ideas out there. Visit the Pinterest board, visit our YouTube channels to show various things. Participate in some of the events that happen. There's the Great Utah Shakeout and National Preparedness Month. September, National Preparedness Month coming up, and there's a whole lot of things happening. Send it home, right? Prepare the family and bring it to work. You know, individuals may bring their kits and plans and medications and things like that to the office if they have to stay there. And one of the principles we'll talk about soon is exercising that plan. Next part, number 5, is business supply chain resilience. So you'll want to gain an understanding of your supply chain and be able to promote resilience within that supply chain. In its basic function, you know, a supply chain is a network of entities that specialize in the raw materials, the suppliers, manufacturing, distribution, and then the customers. And an impact on any link in this chain will impact your ability to continue operations. When the supply chain breaks, the unmet needs of the community increase and the capacity to meet those needs decrease. So consider how to bridge your resource gaps in the short and the long term. Number 6, communications as well as continuity of authority. We'll talk about these ones. Now there's 6 parts to consider when building a communication plan. You got to know your customers, your supplier, vendor, employees, all the contacts. Know their procedures. Like if your supply chain, if they have a crisis or emergency, and if your business has a crisis or emergency, how are you going to notify each other? Having different ways to communicate with each recipient is good. And knowing what your employees need to know and when. You got to communicate not only externally, but as well as internally. And know what your customers and the public need to know and when, and having multiple avenues of communication to deliver your message. Knowing what your message will be and when you should communicate it. Now, on the continuity of authority side, you'll want to identify who is going to act in the best interest of the company. Be sure to set up some form of a 3 deep leadership within your company so that if one person isn't available, then the authority can then go to the next one in line. And make sure that there's some clear decision-making authority that's implemented there. And try to include at least one person from headquarters as well. Number 7 is considering, the structure, the workplace, and where are you going to go if that's not available anymore. So alternate locations are sites other than the primary operating facility, where you can continue or resume those essential functions, and where organizational command and control of essential functions occurs during an emergency. An alternate location should be a sufficient distance from the primary operating facility to ensure that it's not susceptible to the risks associated with the primary operating facility and is accessible to individuals with disabilities. Alternate locations include other owned or controlled facilities performing similar work. Operations may be relocated to an alternate site, assuming both are not impacted by the same incident. This strategy also assumes that the surviving site has the resources and capacity to assume the work of the impacted site. Another alternate location could include telework, right, from home or other work sites away from their normal work facility through remote connectivity. This strategy requires ensuring telecommuters have a suitable home work environment and are equipped with or have access to a computer with the required application and data and peripherals and a secure broadband connection. Reconstitution includes returning to normal operations once the disaster no longer possesses a threat. A reconstitution team that you would set up, they've got a lot of responsibilities. Some of them include initiating and coordinating operations to salvage, restore, recover the primary operating facility and its resources. Also, as well as determining how much time is needed to repair the primary operating facility and or acquire a new facility. Conduct appropriate security, safety, and health assessments to determine building suitability, as well as verifying that all the systems and communications and other required capabilities are available and operational, and supervises a return of personnel, equipment, and documents to the facility. There is a reconstitution checklist that can be accessed to be used to track the process of those operations. Devolution is the ability to transfer authority and responsibility from an organization's primary operating staff and facilities to other designated staff and alternate locations to sustain those essential functions. So consider those elements in there as well as you're doing business continuity planning. Number 8 is all about the finances. And how will you address those finances before and after disasters? So let's talk about finances. Some of your potential actions include safeguarding the documentation and strengthening your credit's ability for emergency borrowing and understanding the limitations of your accounts and payroll, and involving some of your financial institution in disaster planning. So who's your insurance provider? Invite them to the table. They may have some really good information to share with you. If any of you are familiar with the movie The Incredibles, you may recognize this scene where Bob, Mr. Incredible, is approached by his boss and he says, "I'm not happy, Bob. Your customers know every loophole." Let's share a couple of loopholes that are important for you. You've got to know your risks. It's not the insurance company's responsibility to find your risks for you. So understand what your first and third party risks are. First party relates to losses that you incur directly, such as your car needs repairs. Whereas third party relates to harm you caused to others, such as you crashed into someone else's car, or you have to pay for things beyond your own infrastructure. The third party risks are the most important because that's where liability is most extensive. So what is your risk aversion? What risks are you not willing to accept? The answer to this will constitute the best coverage options for you. The other option is to be sold a policy that doesn't cover what you actually need. So what is covered? Match your risks to the right coverage. Insurance companies are not good at marketing the details of their coverage. It's not really in their best interest to do so. They kind of lose money when claims actually match policy. So ask all the questions when you need to get the right answers. And this are some examples of things to possibly review. Ask about those deductibles and the claim requirements. Workplace emergency supplies, right? You have employees that work in your business, and are you prepared with enough supplies to sustain them or other occupants for 12 hours or longer? To put together an emergency supply cache, you'll need to acquire, store inventory, and make accessible those resources. So acquiring means determining what you need, where you can find it, and how to procure it. Storing includes organizing and maintaining that. Inventorying includes what the resource type is, who owns it, where it's located, any additional procurement procedures to keep the inventory maintained. And then accessibility. Consider the inventory and the supplies that need to be made accessible to those who need it when they need it. So who has the keys, right? To access it, make the inventory available in different formats in different locations. Now, encourage employees to bring their own kit to the workplace, or some workplaces may have the budget to provide something like that. And then the employee will then still spend a moment personalizing it to meet their needs. You also want to consider in your supply cache operational based supplies. These are things that you need to be able to continue while things are down, right? What materials, services, contingencies do you need to store so that you can actually continue going? Number 10 on the list is vital records protection. This, as well as cybersecurity, will be number 11. But how are you going to protect the vital records? Here are some examples of some vital records that you may want to protect. There's a lot of information that your business has, and some of those various things have different rules attached to it. So understand what those rules are, and as well how to protect those. And here's some ideas, right? Automated daily backups. There's got to be some backups, and have some of those backups stored in a different location, some other remote location. Talk with your IT partners and suppliers and know what their abilities are during the crisis and what their vulnerabilities are. And then you want to test regularly how you're going to recover and protect those. There's a lot of ideas on csoonline.com that are available to kind of help you out with that. Regarding cybersecurity, we know that there's so many businesses that rely on computers and the internet these days, right? And making this human-caused disaster one of the likeliest and largest threats your company may ever face. So we want to be educated on what those safe practices are and how to harden your systems against those attacks. We know that the threatscape is accelerating. What used to only require a month to respond to now is minutes. And what used to be very rudimentary processes are now turning into a service as a business. Like people are actually working in a business to do cyber threats and whatnot. Very coordinated and very complex attacks on businesses. There's a lot of different things out there that are happening. Agility Recovery is a company that specializes in business continuity planning, and they did this research that 77% of organizations don't have a cyber incident response plan, and that the average cost of a data breach is $3.86 million. And 91% of businesses have reported an increase in cyber attacks since the onset of the pandemic. And security services accounted for an estimated 50% of cybersecurity budgets in 2020. Now, remote workers have caused a security breach in 20% of organizations, and remote work caused the average cost of a breach to increase by $137,000. Additionally, 50% of small to medium-sized businesses have been the victims of cyber attack, and over 60% of those attacked go out of business. And 56% of organizations suffered a security breach caused by a third party. So other than the third party, the rudimentary people involved with this entire thing includes business, the technology or the service provider for that technology, and your cyber insurance provider. Some of the basic cybersecurity hygiene includes doing a risk assessment, contingency plan, and making sure that you have strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. And here's a great resource. There's some training opportunities, self-paced training that the National Institute of Standards and Technology have created, and a framework that you can utilize to help improve your cybersecurity. And here's a great one provided by the Cyber Readiness Institute. They provide free 5-step self-paced course guiding you to become cyber ready. Next in line, number 12, is your emergency response plans. Now understand that business continuity planning is slightly different than emergency response plans, but one interesting thing that we found is that you can't actually build a sufficient emergency response plan without knowing what you're responding to, which is all created within your business continuity planning. So your business continuity planning enables proficient emergency response planning. There's various disaster phases, and the emergency response planning happens within that respond phase right there. You can see that, where you're actually doing the actions associated with acting towards the threat and how to protect life, how to protect the property if an emergency were to happen. So an emergency response, those elements, you have to do that business process analysis and business impact analysis before actually developing the emergency response plan. And then in your emergency response plan, you want to define the trigger, the actions, the tools, as well as the end, right? When does the response end? And then assigning duties is critical, like who is going to do what action. And there's a lot of tools out there to be able to help you develop an emergency response plan. Ready.gov/business. There's some emergency response plans there. Our Center for Disease Control, CDC, they have some tools. And there's another link. There's a whole bunch of other resources, even though they're kind of leaning towards more of the business continuity side of things, they're still very helpful. Some of you may seen something like this, the Emergency Procedures Quick Reference Guide. You can just kind of flip it open and say, hey, if this were to happen, do this action, right? This isn't the same thing as an emergency response plan, but it can be definitely a byproduct from your emergency response plan. Within your emergency response planning, you want to plan for your evacuation, reunification, and sheltering efforts as well. And this kind of leads into employee training because, with sheltering, reunification, and evacuation as well, you'll need to train everybody on how you're going to do that. And so let's talk about training. Number 13 is all about training. All of your training is going to originate from your business process analysis and business impact analysis. That's where you're going to focus and say, okay, here's what we need to train them on. Now, once you identify the trainings, you'll want to train based on assigned duties. You want to cross-train. So if the primary person that's responsible for something is not available, then who can do it in their stead? Train on the actions and the tools to respond to the threats or impacts to the essential functions. And then train on the policies and procedures for each of the event types. Here's a list of common examples of training opportunities and things that Be Ready Business can connect you with as well. Active shooter, cybersecurity, stop the bleed. There's the See Something, Say Something program and videos. There's internally, you could consider training on utility controls and the various tools and supplies and how to use them and emergency communications. There's community emergency response teams. Either you can, if your business is big enough and it makes sense, you can build an in-house team or encourage employees to go take the training from their local municipality. There's also Business Watch, which is a part of Neighborhood Watch, but it's for the private sector. And there's some tools and toolkits available for that. Testing, exercising, evaluating the plan is one of the most important parts. If you have a plan and it just sits on the shelf and it doesn't do anything and you're not training people to it and you're not testing it to see if it even works, then the whole tool is kind of a useless dust collector, right? So testing it, exercising it, evaluating it can be one of the most important steps in this entire process. A recent survey found that 82% of organizations have made updates. These are 82% of organizations that actually have a business continuity plan. And they updated it, their business continuity plans, but 40% of those companies have not trained employees or tested those plans since updating. Now, there's two types of exercises. There's discussion-based exercises and operation-based exercises. You'll see that in the light blue versus the dark blue. Discussion-based exercises kind of help familiarize and develop current plans, policies, agreements, procedures. Those examples are seminars, workshops, tabletops, games. Operations-based exercises are intended to validate plans and policies, agreements, and procedures. They clarify those roles and responsibilities and help identify those resource gaps in an operational environment. And examples of those include drills, functional exercises, and full-scale exercises. And FEMA's HSEEP program, the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program, provides a set of guiding principles that your company can utilize to help develop those trainings and exercises. Now, there's a common test scenarios. There's a list right there, some examples for you. And there's as well some exercise tools that are already pre-made, some templates out there that you can access. Now, here's the very last principle, number 15. Start thinking outside of the box of just your workplace. This is all about neighbor helping neighbor, creating those relationships with various key members in the community and your neighbors. So discover who is in your neighborhood. Share what you've learned with them. Your neighbor's hazards could impact you if you're right next to them, and plan ways that your neighbors can support each other in time of need. Also, know your community. Meet your municipal emergency manager. They have the plans for the area, and they may want to also know what your plans are, because we all have a symbiotic relationship within our community. Meet your local professional responders as well. Help them know what your emergency response plans are, so that when they try to respond, they can know what's going to happen. Your utility providers are also great partners in the community to meet. Go beyond a transactional relationship with your utility providers. You may pay the bill, but when disaster strikes, do you know what their plans are? They may help you know what to expect, and their feedback can have an impact on your business continuity plans. So next step is use the templates and tools that I've been showing to help you build your plan. And feel free to ask the Be Ready Utah team for support in any part of the process. And let's start protecting our businesses, our staff, clients, and community. And with that, do you have any questions?
Thank you, James. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and pop it in the chat. And just so attendees know, this was recorded and we will be sending out the link for everyone, so you'll be able to access that to review later. I'm not seeing any questions yet.
Hopefully, I know sometimes as people come on later, those links don't show up in the chat. So go ahead and repost those links for anybody who's missed the links in the chat before.
Jennifer, we just popped in the PowerPoint link in the chat. So Jennifer, yes, that is available right now. If you can see in the chat. And then again, the link for this entire recording will be sent out as well. I'm not seeing any other questions. James, thank you so much. This was really good. It can be overwhelming. Carrie says she doesn't see the link in the chat. Let's see. Carrie, we can email it out to everyone as well. We'll do like a little follow-up email and send it out. I'm not sure why it's not showing up in the chat. But James, thank you. This is important information. It's something that it's not the most exciting thing to handle when you're a business owner, but it is really important. So I want to thank you for all the work you put into this. And I'm sure we will be having more presentations like this in the future, and we'll email everybody and let them know about that. So James, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for attending this.
Absolutely. And it does look like the link that you sent out may have just gone to the hosts and panelists.
Oh.
I reposted it. It should be fine.
Okay, yeah, it's there to everyone now. So.
All right.
Okay, excellent. James, thanks so much. And everybody have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.